Okay, welcome to our iPad training. I'm going to start off just by talking about some of the basic ins and outs of the iPad and how you can use it on your own. Computer signal I lost. And then Kelly's going to talk about his area of expertise, and that's using it actually in the classroom. So, okay. To start off with, just kind of go over some of the basic functionality of the iPad. Holding it like this, at the top you have two buttons or two inputs. The first one is your power button right there, that little thin strip. And right here is your headphone jack. Plug in your headphones, turn it up. Okay. On the side here, you got your volume switch, up and down. And then the other one is a lock button. You flip that back and forth. When you see orange, that means it's locked. In other words, none of the buttons will work. Okay? Everything's locked. So that you don't accidentally
That's the lock.
do something. That's the lock.
And we're locking it why?
You're not locking it. I'm just showing you.
I know, but why would we want to?
Think about your phone. It's in your pocket.
Yeah.
You accidentally butt dial somebody.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. Same thing with here.
But I don't get the volume thing with this.
So one of the things that
I get it.
one of the things that it does is it locks the orientation.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanted to see something in landscape,
Yeah.
but then hold it this way so you can see the thing upside down.
Yeah, right.
If you have the lock off, it
Okay.
auto orients, and so it'll keep flipping
Gotcha.
around with you.
Okay.
But you can change those settings by double clicking the home button at the bottom.
Yeah.
Double click that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then scroll all the way to the left.
Okay.
Well, that's, I guess, a change in the operating system. I guess it's actually in the settings. That you can change what that button does.
Try to make that one go way much better up there.
That's your keyboard. I think we should have it there. But,
Do you need to be on the
Settings.
wireless network?
So, and then you go to settings.
Are we going to need to be on the wireless network for you?
We will get you to that point.
if
Okay.
you will go, just click real quick and go to settings under general. You can have the little side switch, either lock rotation or mute. So if you're trying to work with a student and you're using that to lock rotation, you can go in there and change that. Okay, so you don't use your nails, you use your fingers because it's what's called a capacitive touch. So it works a lot better if you just touch it with your finger. The nail part's not going to work because it's not an actual button. It senses the pressure.
Well,
The
is this what opens?
settings looks like gears there.
Oh, so over here, then you go to.
See where it says use slide switch?
Okay.
Yours is set to mute, but you can click it so it says lock rotation, and ideally the ones in the cart would be set to lock rotation, because the volume button's right under it. I don't know why they even have mute as an option there, but you can just turn the volume up and down quickly. But locking rotation, especially for some of the stuff you'll do in science, if you're looking at a map or something, or if you're looking at a diagram, it might be helpful. So that just lets you have the option under use slide switch to do something. You can change that. And if you're trying to work with your class and it's not working, sorry.
So it's checked, so it's going to be locked right now?
Now that means the side switch will activate the lock rotation. So when
okay.
you switch it, it's locked. When you unswitch it, it's not. That was the button that he just
Okay, so
corrected.
am I on mute?
You set it to lock rotation, so there's no mute. You can check the volume right
Okay.
there.
Okay.
You can either turn the volume all the way up or down,
Okay, good.
which I think was the next button.
Okay.
And your final sort of input is on the very bottom, and that is Apple's patented input. I don't even know what to call it.
16 pin, right?
Yeah, something around that, yeah. You see one of those and you know it's an Apple product, you're going to get it on an iPod, you're going to get it on an iPad, okay? And right here what we have, this is kind of a multi-purpose charger slash connector. It comes apart, so here you have your trusted USB connection, so one end goes here, and the other end goes into your computer. Now that's just for syncing, and we'll touch on that here in a few minutes about what syncing is and what it looks like. That's just the way to get your iPad connected to your computer, okay? Unplugged, now you can charge your iPad plugged into your computer, but it will draw resources away from your computer, and from my experience, it's not always the most trustworthy. Sometimes you plug it in, it's not even charging. So what I do when I really want to charge it is I plug that back in and plug this into the wall on the other end here, okay? And the last thing you'll notice, if you ever decide to get your own iPad, or you decide to switch covers, right there, you see those holes right there, that corresponds with the vents. So you want to make sure that when you put your cover guard on, that your vents are exposed. Because otherwise they're going to get clogged up with dust, and they're not going to have, your device is not going to have room to breathe, possibly resulting in overheating. Okay? Okay. This, of course, is the iPad 1. They now have the iPad 2, and as soon as you buy the iPad 2, the iPad 3 will come out. So, outdated one by one is actually getting some stiff competition from other pads like the Samsung Galaxy and other tabs is what they're referring to now. So, pushing the home button will start you up. Now, for many of you, you're not even going to have this right here, and I'll show you how to do that. What that is you're able to enter your password. So, go ahead and get on. Most of you will just slide your finger and it will get you onto the home screen. Alright? Now what I want you to do is go back where Kelly had you before and click on Settings. Okay? And again, under General,
I keep touching it.
don't hold down. It's just
One push.
think about using your smartboard. It's similar to that. You're really focusing on the ends of your finger, but not the nail. Okay? It's like Kelly said. It's not simply something touching, because you can take the tip of a pen. It will not work. You know, it is pressure oriented. Okay? So if we are in General and we go over here to Passcode Lock, yours probably says off. But if you click it, if you tap it rather, you have the option of entering a password, which will lock your iPad. That way nobody but you will be able to get in. 4 digits.
Oh.
You can put it in once, then put it in again, and it'll be secure. I'll just touch on some of the other important things under setting.
Please don't lock these, by the way. or the ones that are in this, because they both have.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like if you did do that walkthrough, just undo it. Or tell me the password.
A couple of settings that I want you to take note of. The second one is where it says Wi-Fi. Wherever you go somewhere, whether it's here or at home or McDonald's, because it seems like, I was at Chick-fil-A yesterday and I just happened to be in the drive-thru. I said, I wonder if they have a wireless network. Yep, they do. So you go into Wi-Fi, you see what networks are available. Apple, which is kind of another word for the NMPS network.
Where did you find that? Location services?
No, see where it says wireless, the second
Oh,
one?
Wi-Fi, okay.
And the guest network, which is what we use here. Now the guest network, which is very simple login, it's just guest, but the username is capitalized, the password is not. The guest network is similar to the NMPS network in the sense that it gets you online on an improved Newport News network. However, it doesn't have quite the same stringent filters as the NMPS network. Kids aren't going to be able, or you are not going to be able to access porn or anything like that, but they are going to probably get to some sites that they couldn't get on NMPS, possibly some proxies. I haven't tried them all, but it is going to be a more open network. Okay, and because of the simplicity of the password, theoretically anybody can pull up in our parking lot and access the guest network once a student gives them the information. So, but that's that. Okay.
Is that a problem for us?
I'm sorry?
Does that cause you a problem?
Cause me a problem?
That they can access it? I mean, is there any...
No, there's really nothing you can do about that. That's more of a Newport News thing. And once they opened up that can of worms by allowing a guest network, then there's nothing more we can do. I mean, your only other option would be to never tell the kids the password and log them all in, but that's not practical. So it is what it is.
One thing. Well, yeah, no, I'll come to that.
Okay. Let's see. You have your picture, your brightness and wallpaper, your picture frame. Those are just different ways of kind of adding your own creative flair to your iPad. You're able to grab wallpaper off the web, and you're able to put in your own pictures through iTunes, which we will talk about. Okay, so it's just a way of making this kind of your own. Location services. That was above where I just was. That's something new in iOS 5, which is, you guys are all, is it a 5 or 5.0.1? Which one do they have?
This is 5.0, not 5.0.
Okay, alright, so we haven't upgraded 5.0.1. Location services, in theory, allows your iPad to be tracked to a degree so that if you ever lose it, there's a possibility that they could find out where your iPad is, location. In practicality, I don't know how well it works because I haven't heard it having to be used, but if you turn that on, yeah, but again, it has to be synced to a wireless network in order to be found. So, let's see, Kelly, any other really important settings that you see? I guess we got to touch on iCloud. If you have an iCloud account, that's similar to a degree, similar to places like, well, I guess it's different than Dropbox. It is a way to wirelessly sync your settings, game progress, things like that to Apple servers. Okay? You'll hear the word cloud used a lot nowadays. All that means is that work is being saved up there in the sky. It's obviously not in the sky, it's on servers owned by Amazon or Microsoft or Apple or whoever it is. The whole point of cloud computing is so that you're not taking up your hard drive, you're taking up somebody else's server space. So, for example, the new Google Books, Google laptops that just came out, that basically all they do is run on the web. They're a lot cheaper than traditional laptops, and everything is pretty much saved online. So if you want to use Microsoft Word, you don't install the program, you use the cloud version of Microsoft Word. Okay, so if you hear that buzzword being used, cloud, now you know what it is. It means stuff is saved outside of your own computer. Kelly, anything else that you can think of?
Can you sync this mail to your mail contacts, calendars, and your calendar from school or not?
Yeah, well, what you would do is go back to the home screen. You have a mail icon, and you would click that. So, for instance, my mail, I had a choice of what I wanted to sync it with. I could sync it with my home account, or I could sync it with my work account. And I went ahead and set up my work account. So if you want to do that, let me know, and I'll come help you put in all the necessary server information, because it's got to be done manually.
Okay.
All right? Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about syncing. Syncing is the inclusive term that refers to getting everything on your iPad to agree with your computer. Okay, so whether it's the apps that you've purchased, the music that you listen to, anything like that, this has the capability to sync to your computer, and here's the way it works. Again, you take your connection cord, plug one end in, plug the other end in, and what it should do is your computer will recognize it, it will install the drivers, and then depending on your settings in iTunes, it will automatically open iTunes. If it doesn't, just open iTunes. If you don't have it downloaded, try it yourself or come see me. We'll download iTunes. It's a free program. And basically, iTunes is the hub that contains all of your music, your apps, even videos that you've rented through Apple. Now, and I know, Renee, there was some confusion about this. The thing about syncing with your computer is each iPad or iPod can only be synced with one iTunes at a time. Okay? So I cannot take this computer, sync it with my iTunes, and then take it to in Kelly's room, take it to the iMac, that's not an
MacBook.
the MacBook, and sync it to the MacBook and get everything all together. It's going to say one or the other. So if I sync it with the MacBook and get all of the student apps put on here, it's going to erase everything that I have from my cell. So you'll have a choice to make. If you decide you want your iPad to look exactly like the students', what that means is that you will not have personal control over your iPad. So you'll have to make the choice whether you want to use it personally and then purchase apps on your own, or whether you just want to grab what the students have. And actually, I don't know if they can, because we only have 20 licenses, right? So they really can't do that. So this is for you on your own. But remember, so for Renee, if you have iTunes at home on your desktop and you have iTunes here at work, you can't sync it with both. You have to pick one.
Okay.
Okay?
I've already found out the hard way.
What you do is you simply use iTunes, and I'm gonna see if I can connect my computer again. Our new laptops as ITCs, they're not agreeing with smartboards, so let's see. Let's see if that works. Okay. All right, here we have iTunes. iTunes started years ago. Apple introduced the iPod, and then it changed the entire music culture, because from that point we went from vinyl to tape to CDs, and everything was something that you could actually hold in your hand. Well, what iTunes decided to do is make music available online that you could download and store on your computer and take wherever you want, which was a very revolutionary concept. So what they started introducing is, we got albums here, you can buy the whole album for X amount of dollars, or you just like a couple songs, download each song for 99 cents, and the public loved it. And since then, music is not the same. Just if you want proof, try to find a Sam Goody, or things like that were around when I was a kid. Everybody went into a CD store. Nobody goes there anymore. Everything is online. So you pop in a CD. Let's say you have a CD at your house. You want to back it up, which I always do, because CDs get scratched. And once they get scratched, you're done, you have to go out and buy another one. So what I do is, before they have a chance to get scratched, I put them in my computer. iTunes will automatically ask me if I want to rip the tracks, meaning pull the tracks off of the CD and back them up to my computer, and then it makes a backup. And over here, if I go to music, and this is, it is working, okay, good. Music, I can go to my library, and I have all my songs in there, and I can go and scroll through just all my albums if I want. Okay? Same with movies. If I want to go onto the iTunes store and I want to rent a movie or purchase a movie, you can download it in digital format. It's just based on your preference, how you like to live. Some people just want everything stacked up in their closet or in their entertainment center. Some people want it all digitally, which they can then back up and take wherever they go. Okay? Once you have everything on there, then you can sync it. You can plug in your computer. And I'll show you, for example, what it's going to look like when you plug in your computer.
Karaoke hits, Legally Blonde, is that you?
I have no idea what that is, to be honest with you.
Hit songs from the motion picture.
Yeah. I hate karaoke, so I'm not really sure what that is. Alright, so right there under devices is my iPad. It's going to tell me how big the iPad is, what version it is, serial number, yada yada yada. And I can go under apps.
Oh, we gotta be in iTunes to see this stuff, okay.
Yeah, on your computer. I'm just showing you what it looks like, okay? So right now I'm syncing my entire music library. It's got all my apps,
You want the light on?
everything.
Yeah, 'cause I can't see it.
I got it. And then at any point in time, I can go ahead and click apply, and that'll sync any changes that I made. So if you've just ripped a bunch of CDs onto your hard drive, put them in iTunes, which is automatically going to do if you rip them through iTunes. If you downloaded a couple apps, and you just click apply, or the sync button, depending on what screen you're on, then it's going to go ahead and put everything you have on there onto your iPad.
If you have old CDs that you didn't get from them and you put it in
It doesn't matter if you got it from them. You can pop it in there, and it's going to ask you if you want to go ahead and, I think that it used to say RIP, I think now it's import, because RIP kind of has a negative connotation. Now it says, do you want to import this album into your library? And then as soon as you say yes, it imports everything. Which, you know, became a nightmare for the whole DRM, the digital rights management, because, you know, people all of a sudden just started swapping CDs and creating huge iTunes libraries. But that is, I guess, the possible downfall. Books, photos, and again, you have photos, you grab them from your computer, put them in iTunes, sync them with your iPad, and then all of a sudden you can take any picture that you have on your computer and make it a wallpaper or part of a slideshow. You can put it in a document, things like that. Okay? Are there any questions? Because I went a little longer than I wanted to, because I know Kelly needs to get on this train. Any questions? There's a whole lot more to it. The point is to start playing with it on your own, particularly if you have one, and then generate some questions and preferably come to me, because I don't have class. All right, Kelly?
Hey, could you direct your laptop to the SharePoint?
Sure. You want to hit the lights? Do you want to leave the lights off?
I'll get the lights.
What do you guys think?
I think I won't need that per se. I'll watch your eyes on too. Heads up.
Wake up, Steve.
Think about how can I buy one now?
Can't even see there it is.
I think that's the one Mr. V was going to.
All right, here we go.
That's the one he had, so he's not using it anymore. So.
I think the touch might be working, Kelly, so if you want to go up there, and if not, I'll manipulate it.
It's flashing, yeah. It's just the one that says...
Try.
Okay, so if you go onto the point option SharePoint, onto shared documents, you'll see PO iPad tips 12/02/11. That was the original date of our training. So here's a document that I created. It just has a brief summary of the same things that I'm going to say now, and some links to some resources that I hope you dig in a little bit deeper for actually taking these iPads and using them in the classroom. The first points that I make here might be hard for you to see because the text is small. First points that I make are that the iPad is cool, it's fun to use, but it's not the best thing for every educational application. They have some limitations, and those need to be considered when you're using them with your students, because the laptops are better suited for a lot of the things that you'll actually try to do when it comes to raw computing power and accessibility for running a variety of different websites, and to be able to get the most out of, like, let's say, PowerPoint or Word. You have more options on the laptops than you do on the iPad. What we have is just a very slimmed down version. So then the question is, well, why do we have the iPads if the laptops are superior for some applications? Well, I think that because the iPads are portable and they start quickly, those are their two biggest advantages. You can open up the flap, push the button, you're on. You do have to log into the guest network, which as a class, once they get the hang of it, logging into the guest network is a pretty easy process, and they usually get it done within just a couple of minutes. It's not that big of a hassle. You will occasionally find that the guest network will just kick a student off and they'll flip out and raise their hand, and you can just explain, log in again. And, you know,
Did they lose the work?
no. One of the nice things about the iPad is that the programs that are on there automatically save as you type. The Office products that are on there, they're called iWork. There are 3 of them that we got. One of them is called Numbers. It's a spreadsheet like Excel. One of them is called Notes, Pages. It's called Pages, and that's like Microsoft Word, and then Keynote is like PowerPoint. They're just simplified versions, but they all have an autosave feature on them. I'm going to show you some of what those do. So their portability and how quickly they start, that has some interesting applications. If you want a student to just look something up really quickly, and none of the laptops are on, ideally your desktops will be on so they can log in, but with the laptops it may go through running startup scripts and all sorts of other things that, 5-10 minutes later, finally their computer's ready and they can look it up. So as a quick reference, the iPads can be handy. But the portability, I think, with our program really brings the iPad to its peak state of usefulness. That's why we tried to get the iPads in the first place, was because we do a lot of field-based work and bringing the students out of the building or getting up and walking around. And so as a mobile computing device, they're extremely handy to have with you. They're easier to carry. One of the downsides that I mentioned in this paragraph is that it doesn't play websites that run a computer language called Adobe Flash. So there are some websites that you might use already with your classes that will not work on the iPad. And you need to check beforehand. Don't plan a whole activity without without you having tried the entire activity already on the iPad, because you'll find that the websites look different and they act differently, and if it runs Flash on the website, it won't work on the iPad at all. In some cases, something like YouTube that would normally use Flash, they have really good backup here where if you go to it on the web browser, it just kicks you over to the YouTube app. So there's an app that'll run YouTube videos, but you may be better off just directing them to the YouTube app if you're using YouTube rather than going to the web browser and then going to youtube.com. So the whole concept of apps is that they're individualized programs that do a specific thing. We're used to going to a website that will perform a function or have a game or an activity. In many cases here, it's this individual program that you're going to download and open, and then you use everything that's going on in that program to do what you need it to do. If you need to switch between programs, if you turn your iPads on for just a second, you'll see you can go back and forth between programs. And let's just, you can open any program that you have on there.
But it can't access the internet, right?
I'm sorry?
It can't access the internet when I'm out in the field. It just
No,
doesn't.
unless you're in range of a wireless connection, unless the Waterman's Museum is broadcasting
Right.
Wi-Fi, which they might be able to do, they may already be doing.
Now,
Okay.
Renee, if you get your own personal iPad,
Yeah.
you can get connectivity. If you have, like, say, a 3G plan, and eventually, or is it, do they have 4G?
They have 4G, but the iPads don't process 4G.
But in other words, 3G, in other words, you can use your iPad out the field, but it would just be you.
And you would pay $30 a month for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everything is one click. There's no double clicks on the
Okay.
iPad.
Okay.
Well, except for what I'm about to show you. In whatever program you have open, if you remember the home button, the only real physical button on the front face of the device, if you double click that, you see a little bar that pops up at the bottom.
Oh.
Multitask.
Okay, and so that allows you to access the other programs that are either running or that you've used recently,
Okay.
and it also allows you to manage mute and volume controls. You can access music or whatever, but if you wanted to copy something from one program and put it into the word processing program, you can double click that home button, scan through until you find it, and then select that, rather than exiting and going to the home screens and swiping
Oh,
back and
you
forth.
can copy stuff out of one program and put it in the
You
other?
can do that, yes. What I've done most recently is I had the students using the 3D Brain application.
Uh-huh.
The 3D Brain app is pretty cool and it has some interesting information, but they were supposed to take that information, put it together into a summary and do more research on some of the case studies that were explained. So they had to copy from the 3D Brain app and paste it into Pages.
Right.
And you'll find that instead of double tapping, like Mike mentioned, you'll actually find that holding your finger on the screen produces different results. So if you tap on something and leave your finger there, you'll get different options than if you just tap it once.
Like right click, left click.
It's just like that. So holding your finger on the screen is like right clicking. And sometimes that's when you'll see copy, paste, define. Now, there are a lot of different features in a lot of different apps, and they'll tend to have little tutorials for you, and I'm going to direct you to those in just a second.
If you go back home and choose any app and just hold it down. Just hold it down. Now, see what happens? Everything starts jiggling.
Yeah.
That's a way for you to move apps around.
Oh, put them in the
Okay.
order I want?
You can put them in folders. So, like if you grab one app and drag it on top of another app, those two will go in a folder. It's a way to kind of consolidate your screen. Likewise, you can just click on the X if you are tired of an app and you just want to delete it. So if you take this app and you put it on top of that app, see it creates a folder? So I don't want to do that, so I'm going to take it off. But, whoops, I did
But if
create
you
a folder.
delete it, you can't get it back. It's not like you can go find it.
Well, you have, that's not true. If you do this and you delete an app accidentally, but you have backed it up on iTunes, all you have to do is resync with your iTunes and it will pop it back on there.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
I wonder about that, though, with content that you've created since your last sync.
Right.
So if it's
Content
gonna
with
be
your
a
last sync
restored-
is probably going to be lost, but it will put the program back on there. And then, of course,
Content since last.
so like let's say you sync, and then between that sync and your next sync, you do a lot of work on using that program, and you save it, but then you accidentally delete it.
Oh.
When you sync it back, it will pop that program back on, but with the old data.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And remember, another thing is pinch and zoom. Pinch. You can't do that on the home screen, but if you go, like, say you go on the internet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
Which one's the internet?
Safari.
Okay.
That's Apple's internet.
So, understanding that these versions of the word processing, PowerPoint, and Excel programs that are on here have limited functionality. They're not going to be as comprehensive as what you'll find in the Office suite on the laptops. So if you're crunching huge number sets, this isn't really the right place to do it. But if you're doing field work and you're doing experiments and you want to take measurements, you can have a column in there and you have the spreadsheet together. Or you have a spreadsheet that you can have open, and the students can have open, where they're entering information as you go, and you can do those quick calculations in the field. So that has some advantages for you to be able to do
But
that
see, I
in
don't
a
think I
mobile
want them to
form.
because, our calculations are like, okay, measure your oyster, your fingers are all slimy, don't. So we're writing it on paper and it's really making a mess of the paper, but we wouldn't want to make a mess of this either. So.
Right, so when you get back to the picnic area, or like to the tables that are over there, or while the students are on the bus, they can be
Okay.
manipulating that data
Yeah, okay.
and doing something with it so that when they get back, they can move
Right.
on to the next step.
Okay.
And in fact, I think last year, one of the things I found the iPads most useful for, if you're spending 30 minutes going out to Williamsburg on a field trip, you can have content, you can have assignments ready for them to work on using these while they're doing it. We went to the planetarium. Our world geography students were watching a video on Latin America and commenting on it. My history students were watching one on the Constitution and the ratification process. So ideally, they're watching that, not playing Angry
And
Birds.
you think I'm safe with that if I'm driving and they're not throwing these things at each other? I mean, because I can't watch.
Well, okay, so that actually, the first thing I wanted to talk about are the pros and cons. It has its usefulness, but it also has its limitations, getting to know it first. The second thing is that the very first thing that you do with your students will not be based on your curriculum. It will be all about how to use this properly. Just like we do our Teach 2s in the classroom, it's extremely important to go through proper handling procedures and do's and don'ts with this. If you don't go through that with them, they may do things that are wrong, and then you don't have much recourse to say, how could you, right? Because we haven't really gone over that. So for them to understand that we don't get more iPads. This isn't a renewable resource. This is a non-renewable resource. When these are gone, they're gone. We can't count on that. Yes?
Just FYI, pointed to that as well. That we got this acceptable use policy for the iPads.
And where's that at?
Pass out that. I think I put it on the shared drive, or did I just print it off and give it a bunch? Of course, this is 2010.
Yeah, I had a bunch last time, so yeah, you can update that. And
Okay.
And you'll put
and
it on
put it on the
SharePoint?
SharePoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. So this is the starting point for you to go through do's and don'ts, for them to know this. You know, if you damage this, and one of the rules that I have in place, I don't recall if it's on the policy or not. If your number is number 3, if your iPad is number 3, you are never to touch any other iPad, and no one is to touch your iPad. And if you see anybody like holding one and then the other person's touching it or messing with the screen, put a stop to it anytime you see it. Because that emphasizes, when you check this out of the cart, when you take this thing out of there, you are now responsible for it, and damage to it is on you. You're going to have to explain why this happened. Right? And it's not like, oh, so-and-so was carrying it over there to show somebody and they dropped it. Oh yeah, you know what? That's your problem. That's your fault. Because you took that out. And it eliminates the he said, she said. And it helps emphasize that these are not to be misused
So
or
what would you
mistreated.
do if somebody dropped one and it broke? I want to know just what's going to happen. Don't think you're going to get off.
Right. So if someone were using one of these and they dropped it and they broke and it was due to negligence, then we would bill them
Okay.
and say, look, this is how it worked. And if their parents can pay it, cool. If their parents are, you know, if it's a situation where they're not economically able to do that, then I think we'd probably work with Mr. B to have them do some kind of, you know, work exchange kind of program where they're going to have to pay for it. Because I mean, they're relatively durable, but certainly, you know, they could break. A good fall. I mean, these cases aren't, you know, the OtterBox cases that are all waterproof and super. Although that would be kind of nice for
It does take a lot to break them, though.
I mean, I've had mine for this, you know, a year plus now, and taking it everywhere, having it in my bag all the time. It's
Mine, I put mine, accidentally left mine on the roof of my car.
mine
It took
is
off.
on my desk,
And
but
2
it's
miles
amidst
down
a
the
lot of
road,
stuff.
it
Are you
flew off
leaving?
my car, bounced 3
Are you-
times on the road, and fell into a ditch, and it's still fine.
Nice. Yeah. But so
Don't try this at home.
I would not, having used them, like, students have been really good with them from what I've seen so far, and I couldn't imagine them on the bus throwing them around or being stupid with those. They may be stupid doing other stuff,
And
but...
it'd be in their lap and they stand up and it falls on the floor. That kind of stuff is what I'm worried about.
Well, right, so one of the things that I tell my students, and this goes for the laptops too, you carry a laptop with 2 hands. You carry an iPad with 2 hands. And I told them that they're not allowed to use the iPads while walking, unless specifically given permission to, because they'll pick it up and they'll be like, oh, smash, you know, break, and you know, that kind of thing can happen. So they are to take it. I even have them clear their desks before they go get laptops, so they're coming back to an empty desk. I'm holding it under one arm and swatting stuff away. So I
So
think,
you're saying you still take this everywhere you go, so it does everything that the iPhone thing would do?
except make phone calls over a CDMA network that Verizon uses. You can make calls through Skype or whatever.
Okay.
But I take it everywhere because it'll still compute, you can still do things with it, it just won't connect to the internet. The apps, in many cases, are standalone,
Okay.
meaning you don't need the internet. And just like if you have a laptop, you can still do stuff on it.
It reduces dead time spent on the bus, doing nothing except, you know, just sitting there and farting around.
Right.
I mean, you can actually get stuff, be productive during those times.
Okay.
And what is best about this is it's not just a passive delivery system where you're just watching videos. They can watch a video and they can comment on it. They can write 4 questions related to meiosis, you know, on pages with their name on it.
And then how do you grade it?
Okay, so at the end, once they have everything on here, you have to go and sync the devices in the cart. You put them all in the cart, and that's going to pop up on this computer. This is the MacBook that sits in the cart. And once you log on to that, you're going to see, could you pull up your iTunes, please, and thank you. It is, but if they have questions, they can ask them.
What they're all going to think about my questions.
Hey, that's what a fast forward button's for. Right. When you go to this and you actually see one of the iPads, it'll pop up here. In fact, you'll see 20 of them pop up, and they're numbered. We took the time to number them 1 through 20. So your student in your class should always use the same number always, every
Right.
time.
Okay.
If they do work on another one, it can start to get a little confusing, and that means that we'll have a total of about 4 or 5 students using the same iPad at some point. So iPad number 1, there should be just one student for your class who's using that. You're going to see a list of their apps. And when you click on their iPad, the window will change. You'll see a thing that says which apps are available. And you can click on that and actually scroll down. You'll see the program that they created the document in. And if that
So they don't have like saved documents folder?
No. In that, all of their work will be with anybody else who's saved work on that iPad. And under Pages, on the right-hand side, you'll see a list of things. I think I'm going to have to go over this separately
Yeah.
and specifically
Okay.
when we have it synced up with the cart, and I'll do that when everyone's available.
Okay, all right.
So in that case, what you can do is you can take that document from the iPad, and then you can drag that to a thumb drive that you just have
Okay.
stuck in here.
All right.
And then you have it all, and you would grade it like you would any other
Right.
kind of electronic assignment.
Okay.
And so that part's annoying. You have to access and drag from 20 different things. I haven't found a way to do that more efficiently to get the document off of Pages, except here are two options. One is to have them all sync to the same iCloud account. But the problem with that is it's linked to an iTunes ID or an Apple ID, and the one that we're using to sync all the iPads is a school system one. So that's not going to work, and I don't know if there's some solution for that down the road. Another option is to use a program on here called Evernote. And Evernote, you can create an Evernote account, and that's one I'd like you to read about. If you notice, here, actually I can just reduce this. Oops, sorry.
You want the internet back up?
Yeah, that SharePoint thing. It's nice. This is Windows 7?
Yeah.
When are we getting that?
Ask Charles. Renee's already got it.
Mine died. He had to wipe it and start it.
That was
That's
not
what
Windows
it's about.
7. That was your computer.
That's fine.
That was you.
So, oh yeah, I guess this document might be open somewhere already. Alright, so what you'll notice here in the links that I gave you, the first one is a great website on Apple's website. How many of you have been here? Okay, great. Go here. It's called Resources in Education.
No, wait a minute.
This
This is on the SharePoint. We're on SharePoint.
is on the SharePoint. This is
Okay.
that document I showed you. PO, iPad tips.
Okay. So I can't read any of that.
December 2011. This is apple.com education/resources. So many different things you could read for days. Whatever you're having a problem with,
Okay.
you can probably find
Okay.
a solution there. You can search it. And there are even links to find information faster.
Okay.
Here's another one that is called Apps in Education, and it's called the Dropbox Compatible Apps. Dropbox is another program that we have on there. What Dropbox allows you to do is to share a folder. It's like the hand-ins and handouts folder.
Oh.
So, conceivably, you can create a Dropbox just for your students.
Yeah.
They would know the login and the password. They would log in with their device, take whatever they did and drag it into the Dropbox, and then it's stored on the cloud. You can access it, but they would also be able to access it from home or from anywhere else that they type that information in.
Well, how come you don't use that?
Well, I just don't. Yeah.
But you're saying, I thought you were saying there was no way to do the cloud thing, but that is a good way to do
That,
it.
well, that's a possibility. I haven't experimented with doing that yet.
Okay.
I've used Evernote with the class and had some success.
Okay.
Evernote is a similar cloud-based service where you produce a login, a username, and a password. So the username and the password are available to the students. Once you do that, Evernote on every iPad will be synced together. So when they log in on any of the iPads, the information that they type and save will be viewable by every student in the class,
Oh, okay.
including you if you have that on your iPad.
All right.
But you can